Imagine a scenario that plays out in the lives of countless men every single day. You deliberately pause before replying to a message, attempting to pace the dynamic, only to watch her withdraw completely. The standard internet echo chamber is saturated with generic dating advice for men that fundamentally misinterprets the mechanics of human desire, leading you to believe that if you simply show more conviction, more attentiveness, and more unyielding care, the scales will eventually tip in your favor. You text first, you make yourself available, and you commit with total sincerity. Yet, the tethers of attraction slacken in the exact proportion that you pull tighter. It feels as if an invisible, opposing force is pushing back every time you take a step forward, a tan man reality where the more energy you invest, the less your presence is valued. There is a comforting lie circulating in modern spaces, suggesting that being over-attentive simply means you possess a good heart, and that it carries no negative impact on your inherent value. Break that illusion immediately. Biology does not negotiate with your logical definitions of kindness. Reversing a collapsing trajectory requires an unyielding alignment with human neurobiology, an absolute execution of a 72-hour reset plan designed to permanently shift your position from a desperate search for validation to an unshakable stance of masculine choice. The fatal error most men commit is operating under the assumption that romantic connection is sustained through constant proximity and absolute predictability. Deeply analyzing female psychology reveals a stark truth. The human brain is entirely uninspired by absolute certainty. To comprehend this chilling reality, one must examine the dopaminergic system, not as the source of pleasure, but as the molecule of anticipation. When an outcome is entirely guaranteed, the release of dopamine within the brain plummets to absolute zero. The neural pathways of desire simply do not allocate motivational resources to pursue an asset that has already been completely claimed and secured. The second you enter the loop of signal overload, answering within fractions of a second, abandoning your personal schedule at the first ring of a phone, and saturating her screen with unearned validation, you trigger the signal overload death trap. Her subconscious mind automatically classifies you as a zero-risk, guaranteed asset. In the architecture of human desire, safety of this magnitude effectively paralyzes the urge to chase. Tension requires an active pocket of uncertainty, an unanswered question lingering in the background that forces the mind to wonder whether you will still be there tomorrow. This precise neurobiological response is mirrored with unsettling accuracy in classic behavioral research. Decades ago, researchers at Columbia University placed individuals before two distinct classes of objects. The first set was completely accessible, entirely available at any given moment. The second set was positioned partially out of reach, visible but requiring structural effort to obtain. The empirical consensus was overwhelming. The objects that required friction to access were instantly perceived as significantly more valuable, even when they were objectively identical to the accessible ones. This is the raw essence of attraction psychology. Value is never determined by logical utility. It is forged through emotional friction. A common defense mechanism arises when men confront these mechanics, the existential panic that if everyone withheld attention, human connection would simply cease to exist. This thought process entirely misses the target. True scarcity is never achieved by playing childish, manipulative games, strategically ignoring notifications, or weaponizing artificial coldness. That is merely cruelty masquerading as competence. Genuine scarcity is the organic byproduct of a life consumed by an overarching purpose, deep masculine friendships, and demanding professional or personal empires that naturally limit your bandwidth. If you have felt the exhausting weight of this repetitive cycle, where absolute availability directly caused her to drift away, pause right now. Hit the like button and leave a single comment. Grounded frame. Let this serve as your personal line in the sand, a declaration that you are reclaiming your self-respect from this moment forward. When you operate from a grounded frame, you begin to recognize that desire cannot breathe in an environment completely devoid of effort. Behavioral psychology dictates that human beings value an objective in direct proportion to the amount of personal labor they expend to secure it. Once an individual invests time, emotional energy, and mental focus into a pursuit, their internal need for consistency forces them to increase their commitment to justify the effort already spent. The tragic flaw of the modern nice guy is that he completely robs the other person of the structural opportunity to invest. By answering the question before it is even fully formulated, by being standing by before a need even arises, you leave no empty canvas for her imagination to occupy. A man trapped in this anxious frequency spends his days frantically analyzing her behavior, hunting for arbitrary signs she likes you, completely blind to the reality that his constant presence has suffocated her ability to feel anything at all. For attachment to crystallize, her brain must be allowed the silent space required to process your absence. It must be permitted to ask, "What is he doing? Why hasn't he reached out?" True alignment, however, must eventually sustain itself far beyond the initial spark of pursuit. This requires a ruthless separation between vulnerability born of strength and vulnerability born of desperation. True confidence with women is not a performed act of hypermasculine invulnerability. It is the quiet, stoic embodiment of the point of indifference. It is the exact internal frequency from which you can deeply desire someone's presence in your life without fundamentally needing their validation to remain whole. Sharing your depth from a position of security builds profound structural intimacy. Collapsing emotionally because you require her approval to stabilize your internal state creates an immense, repulsive pressure that shatters attraction instantly. When your emotional equilibrium is no longer held hostage by a text message or an external reaction, your posture shifts, your tonality settles, and your boundaries become absolute. You cease to be a solicitor of attention and instead become a monument of curiosity. Once you command the 3 scarcity secrets required to activate her chase, the architecture of desire demands that you understand the underlying philosophical proof of what women actually look for beneath the surface of these power dynamics. Transition directly into the shocking irony of desire, what women actually want, appearing on your screen right now. Secure your place in this circle by subscribing, step into your power, and never compromise your frame again.